Hi, it's Julie, retire at 60. I'm coming to the end of 2024, it's December, and my aspiration to retire in 2025 by my 60th birthday, the plans have been coming together really quite reasonably. Because I'm Australian, I actually have a compulsory savings scheme called superannuation, and I've been contributing to that for about 27 years. And I had a goal for that to be enough that if I divide that by 20, I would have enough to live on a very moderate, a very frugal retirement for at least 20 years. That amount often is influenced by the different interest rates of the world, where the superannuation company invests my money on my behalf, and sometimes the returns are good and sometimes they're not as good. So my aspirational goal on the current calculation will do just under what I wanted. But in hand with that, not only just relying on superannuation as my retirement funding, I have also been putting money aside in my own bank account. And if you've seen previous video, you will see that I had a goal, but then I didn't reach that goal because I smashed that goal. I went through that goal and doubled that goal. And so what I did with that money is I went and I bought another property in Jordan. So then my backup account was depleted. And by the end of December of 2024, it will be back to what the original goal was. There is going to be some additional months within 2025 that I will contribute to that personal savings goal. And I have an aspiration, if it all works out, by getting a couple of lump sum payments, which could be the sale of my vehicle. I put that in at the beginning of 2025, and then the interest accrues, so that will have an advantage. I still have what is called salary sacrificing within Australia. That is something that we are able to do within the job that I do, where before I get my amount of pay, an amount is taken out salary sacrificed. So when I pay tax, it is paid on a lesser amount. So it is a way of having a double advantage where my taxation isn't as high because I've put some money aside and I'm allowed to use that for different things. For housing, for vehicles, for travel. I can use that $9,000 per calendar year, which is my salary sacrificing cap. Other companies will have different, other organisations, public and private organisations will have their own agreement with the Australian Taxation Office, but for us it is $9,000. So when I get my wage, a certain portion of that goes to salary sacrificing, so my taxation wage is a little smaller, so the tax that I pay is a little smaller. But when it comes for me at the end of a taxation year, because I do not have private health insurance, which is another thing that Australian government tries to money gouge for private organisations, which is health insurance, big discussions about health insurance within the global sphere at the moment. I do not believe in private health insurance because health insurance is just there to profit the shareholders. It has nothing to do with the health of the individual. But there's been so much propaganda about private health insurance, getting a doctor quicker and getting into a hospital quicker, etc., and getting money back for physiotherapy, etc. It's all a ruse, it's all a game. You pay an amount of money and then you pay what in America is called deductibles. For us, it's called out-of-pocket expenses. So you are actually paying over and above what you need to pay. And if everybody contributed to the public health system, where in Australia it's called a Medicare levy, which is, I think, is 1.5% of your overall wage, that goes to support the public health system. Now, if everybody in Australia didn't have private health insurance and used that amount of money that they are willing to pay to a private health insurance company, and they were willing to pay that to the government, the public health system would be additionally outstanding and would have other services. But people are so brainwashed and biased that I'm not going to give my money to the government for them to provide services to everybody. I'm willing to pay a private company for them to make a profit and I get a little bit back. It's just an insane rationale and way of thinking. Anyway, that's another portion of where my wage goes. And when it comes to the end of the financial year, there's a calculation made. And for the last few years, because I don't have private health insurance, my taxation is increased $1,200 that I have to pay additionally to the government for the Medicare levy, in addition to my Medicare levy, which for me is an okay amount to pay, for the main reason that if I was to purchase a private health insurance, it would be 4,000 or 5,000 Australian dollars for the calendar year, of which I would get an offset of $1,200 for the Medicare levy, because it's just a calculation somewhere within the ATO. So I am quite happy to pay $1,200 in addition to my tax, because I'm actually saving, because I'm not paying $4,000 or $5,000 in private health insurance. I'm just paying an additional $1,200 in the Medicare levy. So I'm always thinking about numbers and how they're going to affect me in the long run when I am aiming for my retirement. So my superannuation is chugging along quite reasonably, and I've had the company give me a guide to what the potential payout is going to be in September of 2025, when and if I retire on that date. And so they've made a rough calculation within two scenarios. One of the scenarios, they got one portion of the calculation wrong and didn't take into consideration my additional contributions. So their estimate is just a little under what I was hoping for. But I am hoping that my additional contributions, which they didn't take into the calculations, is also going to be growing over that year. And so on top of the guaranteed portion, my increased amount that I have contributed, and that there has been interest paid or dividends paid on that amount, it is going to be the goal amount that I had set when all this retirement at 60 component started. So how are things going? So things are going quite reasonably okay with the funds. On my day-to-day expenses, I have a couple of different bank accounts of which I have baselines in, and I have got the baselines all where I want, a little bit over, so any of the spending, I'm not really dipping over any baselines. So I've got 3 or 4 bank accounts that have reasonable balances in that. I've got a big bank account that's chugging away and saving, and I've got some plans of what I'm going to drop into that to make that bigger, and my superannuation is chugging along quite nicely. My housing situation, I do have 2 houses in 2 different countries, of which I am funding their ongoing costs, electricity, water, rates, insurances, etc. And those are all manageable expenses. Then the other thing that reflects on what I'm going to be doing, or how my retirement plans are going, is my physical health. I have many underlying medical conditions So I have an incurable abdominal cancer called pseudomyxoma peritoni, PMP. I had a TIA, a trans-ischemic attack, in January of this year, which I didn't have any residual deficit on. But from that, I was diagnosed with a meningioma, a cancer of the meninges, the space around the brain. So that is very disturbing. It is potentially benign, but nobody is interested in analysing that at the moment. So I've got osteoarthritis, clearly I've got morbid obesity, I do not have diabetes or anything like that. I've got some other things related to the pseudomyxoma, the bowel stuff, diverticulitis, I get gastritis, and I'm on a protein pump inhibitor for that, the acid in the stomach. Yeah, I've got lots of conditions just like everybody. In my day-to-day existence, I take just some general medications, nothing too heavy, just over-the-counter stuff, Panadol and Brufen, and I use heat packs just to get me started through the day. But how can I continue to have a reasonable weight and health, because my weight has fluctuated if you see any of my videos. So I really need to retire so that I can just focus on myself rather than focusing full-time on my work and then just completely exhausted and not be able to do anything. There is a psychological component to that. I think we all have PTSD from all the experiences that we've had, but then we can't compare that to what is happening in other places around the world. So it's just a Western thing that we have the capacity for PTSD. So the disturbing thing for me is, how do I get through the next 9 months or 10 months to get me to the end of my working career without me making a fatal error by saying something that I'm going to be professionally hauled over the coals for. And my concerns are that I'm not going to be able to physically get through a work day, so I'm concerned about how I affect the team that I work with, that I'm not able to contribute fully. I don't want to get to the point where I make an error within my workplace, which would be professionally disastrous. So I'm being really mindful and cognizant about those parameters. And so I know that retiring at 60 has to be for me. Because the other thing you think about when you have a life, for the first 17 or 18 years of your life as you are growing, you're fairly independent-ish and you're growing as you want and doing almost what you want within the parameters of your childhood. Then you have your working career, which for me is going to be 42 years, of which I've done predominantly the same profession, but I've done some other things within that time frame. So if I'm going to live until I'm 80, which I'm not, so that's going to be 20 years. So it'll be between 18 and 20 years after my working career. So it's almost like bookends of having some form of independence, of making your own decisions, of not being micromanaged, of being able to be flexible and do what you want. Didn't have much money as a child, so I was supported by my parents. So I'm going to have a limited income in my retirement. But that I'm completely in control of, so I've got to take responsibility for that. And what I did with my money during that 42 years of my working life, I have travelled, I've bought properties, I've made profits, I've done quite really well as basically a single-ish type woman. Most of it has been on by myself and with family giving me guidance and support on buying and selling properties, etc. So if I had not done a lot of those things in my life, which was, traveling around the world 14 or 15 times, not spending 30 or 40,000 Australian dollars every year or every second year on traveling, etc., I could have been exceptionally well off. But I wanted to utilise my money while I was earning it for the things that I wanted to do. So, travelling, cruising, 51 cruises, 68 countries, buying and selling properties, doing what I wanted. I've had a really, really, really good life. Everything I've ever turned my hand to, I have achieved at some level, and you don't always achieve, but you do have to modify yourself at some point. So what I want to basically give you the feedback is the retirement at 60 is looking like it's on track. There is a couple of things that I might have to massage and manipulate and move into place to make everything really, really shine and hit the goals. But at the moment, I'm hoping, this is December of 2024, I'm hoping to only need to be in the physical workspace until about the 1st of March 2025, and then in some way be able to be away from the workplace until September of 2025. I now have approval for long service leave at half pay from April to July of 2025, and annual leave at half pay from July of 2025 till September of 2025. Whether I use that or have something else take its place while I'm still getting paid up till the date of the end of September of 2025, I will just have to wait and see. But at the moment, my goal is to not be physically working in the workplace after the 1st of March of 2025. If that doesn't work out, it will be like the 1st of April 2025, which isn't too disastrous. One of them is about 73 days from the date of recording, 72 days, and the other one would be like about 105 or 107 days, some number like that, that I have, they are calendar days, not even working days. So you take an additional 2 days off or 3 days off per calendar week. And so it's looking like probably my last 50 working days, 70 working days, potentially of turning up into the workplace and exchanging my knowledge and energy for money so that I can fulfill my dream. It is exciting and overwhelming, and what I'm having to do is check myself and not make myself too absolutely pissy annoying within the workplace going, I'm out of here and you sucks are going to be sucking this for the rest of your born days, 10, 15, 20 years of the same grind that I'd been faced with for the last 42 years that just never seems to end. But once I'm out of the workplace, I'll be able to talk about what those challenges are. But while I'm in the workplace, I am not going there. I've just got to protect myself until I can get to that retirement of 2025, which is seemingly on track. So this is Retire at 60. This is Julie. The adventure is going to continue. And I do have another couple of YouTube channels. So like and subscribe this one. I have Explore Jordan with Jules, and I have Jules Cruise Companion. I've got 2 other YouTube channels that has content going out on it. When I get to Jordan, I'm going to look at different things that I might do. I might podcast, I might do lives daily. I don't know. When I get my next opportunity in 2025, I don't know what I'm going to do. It'll be my choice then. Until then, stay safe, everybody. And I hope your retirement goals are coming really close to fruition.